Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking your sources and really unpacking the world of ESG that's environmental, social, and governance. We're focusing specifically on Hong Kong, our mission, to kind of cut through the noise, look at the data, and figure out what's really happening with ESG adoption there. Is it commercially viable? And how does Hong Kong stack up globally?
Exactly. And for that, we're leaning heavily on the HKTDC ESG Index 2025. That's the Hong Kong Trade Development Council's big survey. It gives us some really solid insights into how businesses see Hong Kong as an ESG hub and, how the market's shifting.
Okay, so let's dive right in. What's the current pulse of ESG in Hong Kong now?
Well, the headline number from that index is pretty strong, 64.2. Now, anything over 50 is considered high confidence. So, yeah, Hong Kong's looking pretty good overall.
64.2, okay. And that's across the board, environmental, social, governance.
Yep, remarkably consistent. Environmental was 63.7, social hit 65.0, and governance right there at 64.2. So solid performance across all three pillars.
Right. So businesses feel confident, the structure seems strong.
But, and this is where it gets quite interesting, there's a bit of a paradox. While about 90% of businesses surveyed say ESG factors are important in their decisions, and for Hong Kong businesses, it's even higher, 92%. Only 29% are actually, buying or selling specific ESG products or services right now.
Hold on, only 29%. That feels low, especially given how much we hear about ESG importance. That sounds like a pretty big gap between saying it's important and actually doing something concrete with products. What's going on there?
It definitely points to some nuances. Skepticism, maybe lack of options, hard to say for sure from just this. But it's worth noting Hong Kong still leads in actual engagement compared to others. It's 33% in Hong Kong versus 27% internationally and 26% in mainland China.
Okay, so relatively speaking, Hong Kong is ahead in doing, even if the overall number seems low.
Exactly. And certain sectors are really pushing ahead. Banking and financial services, they're at 37% engagement. Which makes sense, right? It really highlights Hong Kong's role as a green finance hub. They handled, 45% of Asia's international green sustainable bonds last year? Huge number.
45%? Wow. Okay, so finance is driving some of that action. But let's talk money. The bottom line, is this ESG push actually profitable? Or is it mostly, good PR and compliance? Can you make money here?
The sources are pretty clear on this.
Yeah.
Yes, ESG-compliant products and services can command higher prices and deliver better profit margins, too. Get this, 64% of buyers surveyed said they're willing to pay a green premium.
A premium, meaning more money.
Yeah, at least 10% more for products with sustainable elements. That's significant willingness from buyers.
Okay, so buyers are willing to pay more. What about the sellers? Are they seeing benefits?
They are. Around 72% of the exhibitors in the survey reported making additional profit margins over 10% from their ESG lines.
Over 10% extra profit.
That's right. So it suggests prioritizing ESG isn't just about reputation or ticking boxes. There's a real commercial advantage, a way to stand out. Sustainability is genuinely becoming a strong business case, not just an ethical one.
That is compelling. Makes you wonder, again, about that 29% engagement figure, if the profit's there. Okay, let's widen the lens a bit. How does Hong Kong compare? You mentioned mainland China and international figures earlier. How does Hong Kong measure up overall in ESG development and just perception?
Well, how Hong Kong is perceived varies a bit depending on who you ask, but it's generally positive. Interestingly, businesses in mainland China and internationally actually rate Hong Kong higher as an ESG hub than local Hong Kong businesses do.
Really? Why would that be? Locals are more critical.
It seems like outsiders really value specific things. Mainland and international respondents gave scores like 69.1 and 66.8, praising Hong Kong's ESG talent, its expertise, the reporting frameworks, the regulations. They see it as mature and skilled.
Okay, so they see the infrastructure and the talent pool.
Right. Whereas the local respondents, who scored it lower at 58.7, tended to value things like Hong Kong's international connections more and how local businesses engage in community development.
Different perspectives on its strengths, then.
Yes,
Interesting.
exactly. But even with those differing views, when you look at actual commitment in portfolios, Hong Kong businesses seem more committed in practice. 25% of them report that half or more of their current buying or selling is ESG focused. Compare that to 18% for mainland China businesses and only 15% for international ones.
So despite maybe rating themselves slightly lower overall, Hong Kong businesses are, in some ways, walking the walk more.
It seems that way, yeah. Higher percentage with significant ESG portfolio focus.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the key takeaway for you, the listener? It seems Hong Kong is definitely a major ESG hub. It's commercially viable and is well regarded globally, especially for certain strengths. That intent versus action gap is real, sure, but the trend seems clear. Profitability is there, businesses are leading.
Yeah.
It's not just talk.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder, doesn't it? As the world keeps pushing for more sustainable practices, maybe even mandating them, how will that gap close? What new opportunities, what innovations will pop up as more businesses fully translate that stated ESG importance into real, everyday action? Something to watch.